Quick greetings. Welcome to another video. I've had it in mind to begin to look at the United Nations. As we Indians are very aware of their declaration, and I want to say that again, their declaration, okay? I can't help but wonder about the origin. It's a very it seems, I want to say, a very I don't know what the word is. It's just it's kind of all over the place to me. Like, you just get the feeling that the idea was that it started out as some kind of peacekeeping organization, right? But from there, we learned that it has its own court. I think the International Court of Justice. So, just off the top of our heads, if I am an organization to help keep the peace, by what authority do I have a court? Like, how would you get into their jurisdiction? These are the kind of questions that I think we awakening Indians have to just begin to unpack. It's a lot. Like, in other words, you literally, it's like having to take a crash course in just basic jurisdiction, or the law of jurisdictions, or something to that effect. Again, even with only 5, I think they call them permanent members of the United States, the United Nations Security Council. How do you become like it seems to me that it is not necessarily as global, is what they would call it, as it appears. You only have 5 permanent members. You don't. So these dudes, they're the big dogs in the United Nations. These nations, they are basically, it appears that there are 5 permanent members who are like top of the food chain of the United Nations, if I'm reading correctly. So that means somewhere they are grabbing jurisdiction, okay? They have a court system. Again, this International Court of Justice, ICJ, the question that we have to ask, especially as members of a country that was almost like exclusively a free country, how do we get dragged out of our free country into a multinational type of deal with all kinds of governments that are not in line with our principles, which would be principles of freedom, we might say, right? So one of the big red flags for me is, what is China doing in this? And why, if they are in some kind of UN alliance, just as well as Russia, then what is all this talk about war? You guys are in the United Nations. You know, what is this talk about China doing this to us and doing that to us? And then you stop and think, well, they have an alliance somewhere, right? Do they need to create problems in order to create jurisdiction? When I do a video like this, I'm not looking to be attacked. I just want to be I want us to be very aware that our sovereignty, it is truly the only thing we could possibly have to have the voice that would reach the level and above the United Nations. What am I saying? I'm saying, as an Indian not taxed, what they call us, you don't need a United Nations, because your authority on the land, your land, is the highest. Now, if we give it to the United Nations, baby, they're going to take it. And it seems to me that we are being baited with UNDRIP. And I'm just going to say it how I feel it. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that this might not be a welcome message. I'm sorry. But I have a stake in this as well. You know what I'm saying? My life will be affected by anything that ties me or to something that I should not be tied to. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like I'm here just to get people upset. I'm not here to argue. It's, are we willing to learn, basically? You know? And once we do, if we pick up something, can we be of the mind to make the changes necessary? So I propose that, like I've always been, that our sovereignty is the only thing that we need to be reaching for, even before some declaration by some international organization. It's like, why did we go through our personal history with this country to invite some third party that was not there when we made our agreements with the entity that's on our land? The entity that's on our land is like trying to create a network that they can hide in. And once they fail us, they expect us to run to the entity that they basically had a big hand in creating. So it's like, it's a diversion tactic. Okay? It's, how can I get you to ignore your contract with me? Well, I have to oppress you a little bit make you feel you have no other alternative. Forget about your status as a sovereign on your own land. Just forget about that. Forget about Indian not taxed. We're going to swing this UNDRIP in front of you, and you're going to salivate over it. And then when you go to grab it, you will have fallen into yet another trap. Okay. So we're just going to just kind of do a rough overview. Yes, I'm looking for critical information. Yes, I am. I make no qualms about it. I'm not going to just look for all the nice, obviously we already presuming that this organization is trustworthy, right? So no need to, we already put our beans in our eggs in the basket, whatever, right? So maybe it's just that time to look at some other things. Okay. Now, again, this is just an overview. It gets really convoluted even when Anna goes to explain the United Nations to us. I find that it's just a little overwhelming. She will give you the history and who is it's like, girl, just make it plain, please. I mean, she's definitely seeing the one world order aspect of an organization like the United Nations. And I just think that because we Indians have been so oppressed, purposely oppressed, I might add, it's not accidental. So it's like, of course, it's done on purpose for a reason, right? In the, so, uh, uh, they have us reaching for international laws to protect us. If we don't peep game, I don't know what to say. We've got to peep game. Now, we created a document that is fairly covers the basics of our freedoms and our protections. The same entity that reclassified us has gone in bed with this entity called the United Nations. So this is how we have to line up our ducks. This same entity called the United States is in a fairly favorable position with the United Nations. Yet they still have their foot on our neck. Do the math. Go. Just run with that thought and ask yourself, would this entity that's got its foot on our neck be in bed with an entity that's going to help us? These are the hard questions, people. These are the hard questions. It's not popular, right? It's not popular. But that's how I fight for freedom for myself. In other words, I'm going to try to make sure that who I align myself with and I'm going to try the best of my knowledge to find out everything I can, because things, especially when you see, again, basic red flags, the United Nations is based in New York. New York, what has, think stop and frisk, think the gun laws, things is New York pro-Indian. We've had several Black Lives Matter, stuff happening because of, just it's known that as multicultural as New York is, we still deal with all different forms of racism. We do. But so you have the big peacekeeping organization basically standing in New York, where many of the police brutality cases have taken place. What does the UN do for, like, you're right here you reaching out to the ocean to help everybody in the world, but the very land area that you're on, there's a lot of shit going on. What do you say about that? First of all, well, I'm just saying, look, we don't want an international daddy, okay? But the idea is, if peace is your game and justice is your game, the International Court of Justice, when do you get your head out of the clouds and out of the ocean to see what's happening right in a city like New York with police? I would think that the United Nations could step in because they're here. You know what I'm saying? When has that ever happened? They don't. They don't. So we have the United Nations building right here in New York, where all these members from all the world come and meet. Now, a lot of them see the shit that's happening, right? You would think in New York, they would have the police in check, So at least make it look good. I mean, we host the United Nations, for God's sake. We got to at least make it look good, okay? Do the Hegelian dialect in some other state or something, not New York. We should all be good in New York. We should be like when we wake up in the morning and get on the train, like practically hugging the white people and the Asian people and the Chinese people. I'm sorry, and the Spanish people and the Arab people, because we got the United Nations in New York, and what is New York but the United Nations, right? With all these races here, right? No, no, no. How do you base yourself in a city and not have any influence on the several injustices? This is just the common sense aspect of it. I hope that sounds commonsensical. Sometimes you don't know. Sometimes it feels like maybe common sense, like Colinago always says, Chief Colinago, he always says, common sense ain't common. I'm like, but I could have, all right, okay, So we're just gonna, again, skim some documents, just get an idea. Unfortunately, Wikipedia is one of them, but I find that in the case of something like this, I think they're pretty good. They have references. I think people have to remember that you can check their references, especially if it's a one of the entries that has like a shitload of references. So it's just, that's why I think it allows people to add to it. The idea is you're gonna want to hopefully put your reference, So I don't think it's the worst thing to look at. I know it's the cheap way to go in a way, because it's like the first thing that pops up almost all of the goddamn time, But so you just maybe look at it, but then look at some other things. And I did look at Britannica. Was it Britannica? Oh, and it just was a little, maybe it was for something else, but I realized it's just sometimes some reads are a little bit easier than others to read, just to, the way it's written. Um, but anyway, let's take a, wait a minute. I hate when it does that, man. Changes the screen on me. I got my stuff all lined up and it doesn't change the screen behind, that I'm going to open up to. Okay, this is, again, I told you it's Wikipedia, so let's just get what we can, okay? I'm just going to try to show you what seems odd to me, and namely it has to do with the nations that are involved, like Russia and China. It made me wonder, why, how do we have propaganda leading us to believe that we're in such danger with Russia or China when they're both part of the United Nations? That was the first red flag, one of the basic red flags. Okay, so let's just see what we can see. Okay, the United Nations is an intergovernmental organization whose stated purposes are to maintain international peace and security. So there's an overriding that's going to occur, it sounds like to me. And there is, we'll read, I believe, how the UN, it overrides national laws, is what I thought I saw. And that right there kind of makes your hair straighten out a little bit. It's like, okay, so that, I'll put you this way, y'all. Let me just simplify this for you in this. If you ever entertain the possibility that a one world government could exist, then you have to entertain how that might happen. What would be the entity to be that thing? Who or what entity has made itself present in the name of peace, but then seems to have this override of even your own laws? Like, for instance, why would a president of the United States not want to handle his business, but want to defer to a United Nations? You see what I mean? Do you see the game? Can you peep game? We made it very clear in the Constitution. We could have made it clearer, I think, what this nation was about. Why do we need a third party unless someone that we sent that message to, like a president or whatever whatever constituents he's working for? If you don't understand the contract we made, you come to us, right? You don't go looking for some otherworldly peacekeeper. First of all, what part of America became this thing that is constantly seeming to take this aggressive approach to getting involved in other nations' business? First of all, like, at least make sure the country has policies similar to yours. I mean, you're reaching out literally to change other governments, how they do their people. But we didn't ask you, did we ask our government to do all of that? Or were they just to basically take care of commerce? In other words, just make sure our goods and services cross over the sea safely. We didn't say get off the boat, check out what's going on, fix it, come back, and bring us into a war if you see fit. We didn't ask them to do all of that, did we? But you must see that if they create or help to formulate an entity like the United Nations, that is a self-serving type of thing altogether. We the quote unquote people, we didn't think that we couldn't handle our own business. But if you're getting your nose in everybody else's business, then you need a vehicle that looks all official and say they about peace, so that you can stick your authority over on other people's lands. But why? Do we have everything straight in our house to be able to fix somebody else's? I mean, how you treat the Indians alone shows me that you're not interested in peace. You can't be, right? I think Indians just have to always stop and just think for a minute. Let the ancestors talk to you. Just a few minutes. And the ancestors said, and can you please continue reading this document that we trying to break down here? Okay, sorry. Okay. It is an intergovernmental organization whose stated purposes are to maintain international peace and security. I'm a little concerned about security, y'all. It just occurred to me, you sound like you policing the world, right? I never looked at it like that, but what else could it be? Security? Security from what? From their own country? They got to do that. Anyway, develop friendly relations among nations. That makes me pause. I mean, when you came here, you weren't very friendly to the Indians, but now you're all about, now that you got on our land, you the big dog in the house gonna go fix everybody else's house. Achieve international cooperation. Not sure I'm seeing a lot of evidence of that either. And serve as a center for harmonizing the actions of nations. Why do we have to be in harmony with other nations as long as we're not fucking with them, huh? In other words, how do you stay in harmony with them? You leave them the fuck alone. That's what you do. You leave them alone. Mind your business. Now, if they come up on this landmass, well, then we're gonna do some harmonizing for real, right? That's when you gotta do the harmonizing. Seriously though, but what I just don't see where that was anywhere in the Constitution. Think about it. Think about it, Indians. We had plenty of our own issues. We were not thinking about having an organization that tries to take care of the entire, what they call, globe. Why would we want to take on that kind of responsibility? Are we that good here that we just have no issues, that all we got is free time to go fix the world? The UN is headquartered in New York City in the United States. But with certain extraterritorial privileges. Who gave them these privileges? Again, when we made our contract, I don't even think we had anything like this in the on the drawing board, right? We had to work with what was here and make sure that they were clear before we send them out to go fix the world. Extraterritorial privileges. And the organization has other offices in Geneva, Nairobi, Vienna, and The Hague, where the International Court of Justice is headquartered. So sounds like, I don't know, like, would it be possible that a court like this might someday take the place of, for instance, like a Supreme Court in America? Now, we Indians are not under the Supreme Court. We're not under the state. We're not under the federal. I'll say it till it makes sense, because it took time for it to make sense to me. I think we just need to hear it. But I'm just saying, you could almost imagine that at some point, wouldn't they want courts everywhere in all of their partner nations? So now we have an international entity on our land that has some ability to override our own laws that we fought or helped fight for, right? Okay, so you say, well, what do you say we do? Indians, I've been telling you, at least for the last 5, 10 videos, that our sovereignty is everything and anything we could possibly need to get done what we need to get done. No one else can do it, because why? This is not their landmass. These international organizations, yes, they want to land grab your land. You have to fight against that. Meaning, instead of relying on an UNDRIP, we draft our own declaration, because then that gives us the authority. All they did was create some little group, and then it became like it's this, like international law is the greatest thing. It's not. Why? Most of us don't like the idea of a one world government, do we? Then why would we contribute to it? We got to find out. We have to learn to look for the origin of a thing like this, an entity like this. So then it will tell you who you are answering or will answer to. The UN was established after World War II with the aim of preventing future world wars. I mean, world wars, right? You can't even stop the little small wars, from what I'm understanding. Okay, so it's not a world war, but haven't there been wars that much less uh the magnitude of a world war? In other words, are they doing a great job at that? The UN was established after World War II with the aim of preventing future world wars, and succeeded the League of Nations, which was characterized as ineffective. I wonder why, though. On April 25th, 1945, 50 nations met in San Francisco, California for a conference and started drafting the UN Charter. I believe it was Anna, I often quote her, that said charters have to be made by sovereigns or nobility who have the authority to give a charter or something to that effect. I would have, you know, uh 50 nations met in San Francisco. So Indians, your land, I think the reason why they're using your land, because as I said before, I know it sounds wacky doodle, but everywhere else in the world is like, I want to say, a monarchy because of the Moors who went out and civilized, quote unquote, through barbarism, quote unquote, civilized the world. So it was meant to be like a monarchy. America was the place where we didn't want that one God, because the one God leads to, the one people, you know, dominating and like a one world order. So amazingly, what prevents that? Now, hear me out, please, because I don't know if we make the connection often. But the best way to prevent this is going to make some people hair stand up. The best way to prevent domination by one entity is to have religious diversity. I'll try to say it again. One of the best ways to avoid a one narrative, one world, one God, one world domination type of thing is polytheism. The true and I want to say humanitarian, even though that word is, becoming a bad word. It's the one of the most lending of itself. I'm not finding the right word. Polytheism lends itself to a basic tolerance of diversity. When you think about what the Church of Rome did in the Americas, it has to do with influencing a world around us, a world outside of the Americas, that we were not following that one God that they were promoting. Obviously, we were not practicing what the Church of Rome, what is the Church of Rome practicing? It's a sort of a wackadoodle form of monotheism, but it is considered monotheism. The reason why they had to come and beat us over the head with it is because we didn't practice that. We never did. At our inception, this is how America became the enemy of the world created by and for the Moors. The Moors got it in their head that in order for them to dominate the world, they have to get us to accept one deity. So then they can start to promulgate very rigid ideas of what is righteous and what is acceptable. They have to get people on the same page so that they can dominate them with that spirituality. And then the spirituality itself is going to be the driving factor. It's going to make you feel that you're doing something good. You're doing it for the real God. You could kill a man, and the fact that you did it for God makes it okay. This is the danger when we have a prevailing dominance of a like a single idea of spirituality. You know, America was not that, I promise you. That is what made us different from the world around us. Once the Moors got kicked out of the Americas, this is what they spread: monotheism. Okay? And so they taught the world to hate anything that was not their version of monotheism. And so when they came for us, the world could do nothing. They didn't have the tools. They were intolerant. They were taught to be that way. And you could extend it. Yes, originally white people were taught to be this way. The different, I'm going to try to make a little bit of an example that maybe it's a little far-fetched, but I think it's still valid. I think one of the reasons why you might say when we go at our worst, when we are being racist or prejudiced against white people, one of the claims is that they don't have God or something to that effect. They're not spiritual, la la la, you know, that kind of thing. Well, that was by design. Is basically what how I would say it. The first thing they got, if we go with the narrative of even what happened, you know, in Spain, they only ever got monotheism. Once the Moors got hold of them, shall we say. This is what was being taught in the world. I think this was planned very early on. You know, the priest, again, it's a priest class. These are the ones that take spiritual authority. The United Nations would be the best thing for a priesthood to have, because that's going to grab, again, it's like where religion fails, something like the United Nations coming in the name of peace will prevail. So for those who, you know, in other words, what do you think, what would the spiritual tenets of a United Nations be? What kind of spirituality would they be building a United Nations on? It would have to be some idea of, in other words, the United Nations pretty much is taking on the idea that we have an idea about peace that without us, the nations don't have. We're going to orchestrate peace. So what is your peace built on? What's the spiritual narrative behind your peace? You know, what is it? I'm going to say that it's working hand in hand with all the principal entities that were involved in the creation of the United States, not the United States of America, but the United States. I'm willing to say, to bet that those principles, the UK, the Vatican, they would be the ones who would most, let's say, get their agenda across. They just need America. Now, they could have did it without us, but greed and the sheer lust to have everything, it's like they had a lot with the rest of the world when America wasn't a thing. You know, they lied and said that this was a new world when they know damn well America is the ancient world. So these uh these a lot, you know, these offshoots, these renegades that were expelled from America, I feel like they're obsessed with America. It's like I have 99% domination without America, but I just can't sit my fast ass down knowing that that land is there with that wealth and all those, you know, all that abundance. That, and the thing is, when you're greedy, it might look more appealing than it actually is. It's just the sheer greed to have everything. They could have left us alone, y'all. Seriously. When the world didn't know about us, they could have left it like that. I truly believe that it it was not like some fluke that got Columbus over here, or somebody being defeated. I just don't buy it. I never did. I never did. I'm still trying to understand how why, you know, okay, so you get defeated by Spain. That doesn't mean, that's not, we didn't have anything to do with that. Like, we didn't, they didn't even know about us. So how in your defeat do we become targets for colonization? Why would they even set their sights on us? They just got, you know, independent from Moors in their country. Wouldn't they have so much work to do to bring their country up to par? No. Something was lacking, because it's like they just, I don't know. Um, it's like, is that normal? Like, if, like, when we won the Revolutionary War, uh, did we run to be some, you know, take over some other country? Is that what people do when they win against their enemies? They run. Why? You just got your land free. It's yours now. You don't, aren't you happy? What more do you need? It never made sense to me why they came here. But I think the part that would begin to make sense is the Church of Rome. Now that is a different story. See that, but the Moors are the top black men in any monotheistic religion. I'll say it again. The the model of a monotheistic religion was created by expellees from ancient Tamerica or Tameri. So they seem to like to do things in threes. Like when they have three do we need to use colorful language? Three different shots. You know, the Moderna, the Pfizer, the AstraZeneca, some you know, threes. They're very Trinity oriented. They have three deities, three religions, and then three within the three when it comes to Christianity, the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. But then the larger Trinity would be Allah, Yah, and Jesus. And three. So yeah, so in other words, they need the diversion, but the goal of the diversion, you need it to cause division, and then somehow you rework it into unity. Again, Hegelian. So I'm sorry, we stopped reading again. So on the 25th of April, 1945, 50 nations met in San Francisco, California for a conference and started drafting the UN Charter, which was adopted on June 25th, 1945. The charter took effect on October 24th, 1945, when the UN began operations. The organization's objectives, as defined by its charter, include maintaining international peace and security, protecting human rights, delivering humanitarian aid, promoting sustainable development, and upholding what kind of law? So it's a whole other set of laws. It's a whole other set of laws outside of our Constitution. When we contracted the United States of America government, it had the element that they or the area that they really were head of, you might say, again, was commerce. But again, to do commerce, you don't have to develop international laws. In other words, you just have to, what is trade for? It's, I need that, you need this. Okay, let's get this thing going. So I don't have to change the whole makeup of your country to do business with you, right? But clearly there is a whole new, really, it should just be called commercial code or commercial law, because that's all our business is with other countries. That was what the Constitution was speaking about, commerce with other, countries. But again, when we asked them to do that or contracted them to do that, we didn't need a whole new set of laws, did we? They decided. It wasn't part of the Constitution to make a whole body of laws, right? But you can kind of see where this is headed if you think. At its founding, the UN had 51 member states. As of 2023, it has 193. Almost all of the world's sovereign states. I wonder what happens when they get all of it. If Indians don't stand up on their side, see, okay, why sovereignty? There he goes talking about sovereignty again. If you're not sovereign, you don't have any say in what this country may or may not do with an organization like the United Nations. I know we want to be trusting little Indians, right? And really actually believe that this entity that has done all but ripped the Constitution into shreds. I know we want to still believe that, oh no, we can work with that. Blah, 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 blah. Again, just for the record, I speak as a sovereign Indian. This is not about a forceful overthrow of any government that is on American soil. This is about the laws we have in place, the Constitution we have in place, the 1787 Constitution. It's about the 19 enumerated functions that we did agree to and nothing more than that. It's about the creating of a status that has no legal standing. Why would we want to create a status like Black, African American, Negro colored, if our contract was regarding Indians and free persons? Who created these other inferior, unprotected entities? So they create them and then they pour you into it. They make the mold and then you get poured into the mold. That's how we have to look at the United Nations. It's creating a mold and pouring your Negro ass into it. So where's this trust? We have a standing already. We just have to stand on the sovereignty. I know it's like learning to walk, I guess, and we still looking for, or, ride a bicycle. It's like we still looking for that hand to hold, the walker. We're still looking for the training wheels. At some point, we're going to stand, y'all. But we don't want to depend on the support system. Not that this has ever been supportive of us, but I guess us clinging to their laws and quoting their codes, biggest mistake ever. I said it. I just want to reiterate it. It said something that it kind of, you know, those things you say you didn't realize that. Wow, that was kind of heavy. When we take 2 or 3 of their nice sounding codes, that gives them the right to say, well, you can't just take these waters and not have all of the Kool-Aid, you know, whatever. You can't pick and choose the nice ones. That's why we made them, for you to get trapped by them. And again, Indians, listen, even when they do have the nice laws and codes, if they're not unalienable, I say this all the time, they're not permanent. They're not. That means some council, you're going to have to beg them on your hands and knees, and Lord knows what else you're going to have to do, but that just turns them on more, the begging servant, because they're unalienable, just like the voter rights in Georgia. They're not permanent. Congress has to sign those back in. And I'm pretty certain that the council on these international seats, they're going to have that same power. You're making them your leader. You're making them your king. So they're going to like playing that role. That means, in other words, you're giving us your authority because you have been dumbed down to basically just try to make you a walking dead consumer. So you need a daddy, but you don't. I hope Indians are familiar with all everything outside of our homeland that's courting us. It took a while for me to really, but again, if you really think about it, how does a foreigner know better how to treat me than the entity that I contracted with, who's acting clueless? And so it makes me have to run outside of my jurisdiction, creating another jurisdiction that is also off the land. Now, the United Nations has their building here, but as we saw, they have the court in Hague. They have other, it's not just New York. That's the nature of anything international. It's there's going, in an international kind of setup, you're going to have somebody representing you, but they're going to be in conjunction with other leaders that allegedly represent the people. But do they? So it's the boys club all over again. These fools gave me authority, and now I could do me on the down low. Oh, you got to make it look good. I'm here for peace. Just do peace. If everyone practiced peace separately, without, If that's what you want to do, just do it in your land. You don't, you know, do it in your land. I shouldn't have to be involved, trade and commerce is that's just business. It's like one of my crazy analogies. It's like making an agreement with the mailman. Let's say he represents trade, and he's bringing our mail or whatever. It's like he comes to the door, he gives us the package. Maybe it's one of those type of deals where it becomes a transaction, like a commercial transaction. So maybe we give him a tip or something, just in this example. So he comes to the door, he brings me my goods. Maybe to make it more like a commercial transaction, let's say I pay him, I tip him or something. So I'm going to close my door. I got my package, and he sticks his foot in the door. And I'm like, excuse me, sir, can you move your foot, please? And he's like, well, when you opened the door, I saw that your house didn't look quite right for the kids. It's like, well, I saw your little boy over there, and he looked like, is that a bruise on his arm or something? And I heard some arguing in the background. It didn't seem very peaceful. Sir, can you remove your foot before I call the police? Well, no, I'm part of a new council. I override the police. If I see something not looking very peaceful, I'm going to have to, and at that point, the man pushes his way into the house, investigate and make sure that I don't have to drag you to The Hague. Drag me to The Hague? Oh yeah, you won't. Our court is in another landmass. It's not on your land, but I do have the authority by virtue of this international entity that I'm a part of, that if I see something ain't right, I can override all this and drag you into international. Or some, it's like, it's not the best idea, but the idea is, excuse me, the ideas, I'm getting tired. We don't want that. What I'm trying to say is, commerce doesn't mean that you start creating policy. You don't have to. The Uniform Commercial Code is for that. Now that I would say, okay, if you can establish a uniform commercial code with all nations, it just tells you how you're going to act in commerce. But just like with what the government did to us Indians, we were not supposed to be, they weren't supposed to be all in our business, right? But once they create a different us, now they could stick the foot in the door, they could tax us, they could anything they want, because they're having you abandon your first status. And you thought it was going to be about, oh, I thought you were going to bring me up in status since I gave up being an Indian. I thought you said if I was black, that now you can help me with aid and da 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 da. Well, that was just the honey for the bees. I took you out of sovereignty and made you a slave, is the bottom line. This is what we are, Indians, if we don't have our sovereignty. I don't care how you pretty it up. I don't care how you pretty it up. I don't care how good the benefits and privileges look to you. I'm telling you, we should know. We of all people should know what this has meant for us. It's like it got worse. And that's the trajectory. You see, that's the first the first initial sparks of disenfranchisement are thrilling. You are high on the idea that now I'm going to move up in the world. And so you'll get something like I don't know, a social security card, a federal ID. And you like, now I'm like, just like every other immigrant. See, that was a problem. No, you didn't realize that. But instead of being like the landlord, you got the little paperwork, and now you're just like, see, you wasn't supposed to be though. You were supposed to be. I think Indians are at a crossroads. We're waking up, but it's like we still see the work of being a sovereign as we're not ready for it yet. If the ancestors woke us up, that means we're ready. So if you're an Indian and you kind of think the only way that we can have law and order is to keep this oppression here, we never had law and order with them. It's not going to magically happen because you're an Indian now, I promise you. First of all, how we know it's not going to be because you're not going to have your full sovereignty. Just to be under this federal system, you have to have what they call sovereignty, which means, and I've said this before, I don't know what's so hard to understand. That's why I often think that, no, it's just the Iroquois taking control of the awakening. That's why words like this might fall on deaf ears. It's like, I have no intention of being independent. Are you kidding? But independent gives you the authority you need to get shit done the way you want it done. Being under the thumb of your oppressor is the absolute worst way to try to attempt to get anything done. He has all your power because you saying you don't want it. You saying, I need a daddy, I can't do this by myself. I've been out of practice and I'm not trying to. We can't share authority with the oppressor because you'll always get the lesser. Yeah, that's a rhyme. You can't share the authority with the oppressor because you'll always get the lesser. It's true though. It's true. Already, if you read federal Indian law, Mr. Derico, he told us what that's about. He was a lawyer, and he said he realized that all he's doing is making oppression look good. Something that he said about being a lawyer that for indigenous people, or he realized it was a farce. He said it's just a way. I forgot what he described it as, but this is a lawyer, man. He saw the bullshit. Okay, so let's finish. The organization's mission to preserve world peace was complicated in its early decades, due in part to Cold War tensions that existed between the United States and the Soviet Union and their respective allies. Its mission has included the provision of primarily unarmed military observers and lightly armed troops. That's like having, again, so that is like a one world government type of tactic. Lightly armed. What do you mean lightly armed? You're either armed or you're not. Monitoring, reporting, and confidence building role. Who's confident? People that work in the UN confidence that they could take over the world someday once they more heavily arm the troops. You start off light, make it look sweet. But once you get accustomed to this kind of presence and you think that it's for your behalf, when they do it for real, it's going to be like, you might not even realize what's happening. Cold War tension. But Cold War is not war, right? It's not. It's okay. So you don't want to get, as long as you're not hurting each other, it shouldn't be a problem for the United Nations, right? I would think they say they want to keep peace. So you talking about prevent actual war? A Cold War is not a war, I think, that would need the United Nations. I mean, uh, you know, so UN membership grew significantly following widespread decolonization in the 1960s. Decolonization of what? Of what country? Since then, 80 former colonies have gained independence, including 11 trust territories that have been monitored by the Trusteeship Council. That's a branch of the United Nations. So they're taking land into trust, like, trust territories. That's land grabbing, isn't it? Why would they need to do that if they're just about keeping peace? Like, uh, by the 1970s, the UN's budget for economic and social development programs vastly exceeded its spending on peacekeeping. See, that's how you win the people over. Trust me, if somebody's throwing money at you, or you're gonna go for it, right? Usually, I mean, it literally, the first instinct is to just take it. But see, nothing is without some kind of price, especially with this kind of organization. So they have a budget for economic and social development. How do they develop economics? When? So they're just, it's like you have to appeal to people for them to want you. What if you don't, okay, say there's no wars going on. So then the United Nations is just there for what, right? So they create, sort of like what Congress did, create more services that no one asked you to do. That's exactly what Congress did. 19 enumerated functions turned into over 300. So then the UN has to make up stuff to keep, first of all, winning people to its jurisdiction, basically is what's happening. And, but again, wouldn't it be to the advantage of an organization like UN for there to be crisis in whatever given nation, so then the UN could fly in like Superman? Don't see how they play us. So after the end of the Cold War in 1991, the UN shifted and expanded its field operations, undertaking a wide variety of complex tasks. See, you see that? it's like doing too much, right? The UN has 6 principal operations. I'm sorry, operational organizations. The General Assembly, that's when they get in that big room in New York on 42nd Street or the end of 42nd Street. The UN has 6 principal operations. I'm sorry, I said it again. 6 principal operational organizations. I'm squeezing the words together. The General Assembly, the Security Council, the Economic and Social Council, the International Court of Justice. That is so interesting. Now that I'm thinking about this court, I'm just all of a sudden I'm just having issues of jurisdiction. Like for a court to hold court, they have to have jurisdiction. And I'm thinking, how did they get that jurisdiction? Like, I guess the members put their citizens in that jurisdiction. I guess did the people have a choice? Did Americans choose to have a UN? Did we have a vote on that or something? No, right? Yeah, because this government has been acting on its own. That's why Anna is here for the state nationals, because they will have authority and say. Same thing goes to Indians. When you get back into your proper status, then you have authority. That is what, again, Anna is doing as for state nationals or state citizens. She's bringing the authority back to where it was supposed to be, where the people would be able to say, nope, we don't want to do that. Nope, we don't want, they talk about a democracy. But are you even considering the people's voice? Or like someone said, are we the people just the people in Congress? So, with all this talk about democracy, are you hearing the voice of the people? Because that's what you're saying when you say democracy. You want to get a mob agreement so that you can do what you need to do. But I don't even think that's taking place. I don't think the people have been heard for a very long time, probably right after the bankruptcy. When we went into, bankruptcy, the United States went into bankruptcy. And I think from then on, it's just about how do we get at that collateral, which is us, or supposed to be us. How do the what do you call it? The shareholders get their hands on that collateral so they could do what they want with us, without, and they have to do this without us kind of not really knowing, So we don't have decision-making power without sovereignty. Indians, I don't think, should ever want to be under the thumb of the United States. I don't know what have they done to win that much power from us, the Indians, the ones who have the power. I don't think they have a good track record. I think we should be running to have our sovereignty, knowing that that will give us a voice. Okay, the UN system. Okay, wait a minute. The International Court of Justice, the UN Secretariat, and the Trusteeship Council. Although the Trusteeship Council has been inactive since 1994, the UN system includes a multitude of specialized agencies, funds, and programs, including the World Bank. They have a bank. And the World Health. Ooh. Ooh. Now, if Indians didn't see or notice the shenanigans with this organization alone, Let's highlight that. If we, what did, I don't know if people saw how this organization, the role it played during the pandemic, the pandemic. But if this is connected to the UN, baby, watch out. Trying to get this thing to highlight, but it don't seem like when there's a hyperlink, it doesn't really work like I want it to. There's so many hyperlinks that the highlighter can't work. Okay, let's try it. I have to go outside and oh shit, they got food too. I didn't know about this one. The World Food Program. What Indians should be thinking is one world order. If you don't have your sovereignty, an organization like this, it just runs right over your little Indian body. Well, I should say your little Negro body, because you have the same authority as a Negro. When an Indian without sovereignty is, in fact, a Negro, a colored, a black. This is scary. This is scary, man. This is scary. The food program. I mean, I couldn't get they when you're an entity that big like the World Health Organization, and you don't look into alternative medicines, there's a problem. So, mind you, for Indians, this would amount to, and I'm going to say it because, again, as an Indian, it is said that I have a right to not be genocide. So, if I have a World Health Organization that's cheering me on and supporting forced vaccinations, and this is a branch of the, I'm just trying to get Indians to think bigger. That's all. I know you don't like me. I know you want to knock me out. I know you saying I work with them. Um, I'm just trying to make those connections. This I didn't catch this one. The World Health Organization is a UN agency. All of these are UNICEF, UNESCO. If you ever feared a one world big brother type of entity, you're looking at. You're looking at. Clearly, this would be the organization that is already set up to be just that. When everybody's nations fail them, what does that mean? That means your president or whoever is leading is just going to cede all his power to this, because the people are going to be so disenfranchised with their leaders, right? So then some savior is going to come. What? Okay, so you hear Heru just making us so depressed with this bullshit that you showing us. What is the solution? I already told you. I already told you. Fight for your life means fight for your sovereignty. It's not even that hard a fight now. The doctrine of discovery was denounced. The fight is much easier now. There's no justification. They would literally have to say, well, wait, there's this other edict that we could do. There is no, the Pope is the one who started it and he ended it. Point blank, period. Everything that was done to Indians was based on the doctrine of discovery. It's like the rug has been pulled from under any entity that is still doing it, and they still are. Why? Because Indians have to make a statement now. We have to respond. I think we have to make a public announcement. So that, in other words, even if the Pope never answered it, it's on public record. And it's in line with what he did. So he couldn't say anything against it. Like, say we put it on public record. Like, we just make our little declaration or whatever. We print it somewhere, maybe find it's like a newspaper that's willing or whatever. It's out there, get it all, send him a letter or whatever, notarized, not certified, but what's that other expensive one? Registered mail? Yeah, that one. That's a real expensive one. Copies, get that registered mail number on the letter itself. Keep it, a public record. And then from there, it's already set up for us. It's like, it's really I think once the foundation has been dissolved or denounced, we have a new foundation. What it's called? Our sovereignty. Our sovereignty. Yep. Okay, so the UN system includes a multitude of specialized agencies, funds, and programs, including the World Bank Group, the World Bank, the World Health Organization, World Food Program. You see the use of the word world, one world order, world. It's not America, it's not Russia, it's world. Some dudes, the black elite, namely the ones that got kicked out of America, this is what they've been waiting for. This is what everything they've done. They oathed for this. Secret organizations for this. They don't want America to stand out as the free, quote unquote, world. So they're using America to grab those that are not in the free world. But again, that's the world. Why is my microphone not working? Why? Seems like it's working. Okay, let me. I got a pop-up saying my microphone's not working. That never happened before, not during a recording. If it wasn't working, why would you wait like an hour and a half into the video to tell me this? Zoom. I guess what I'm saying is just it's causing the mic to not work, right? Mysteriously. Additionally, non-governmental organizations may be granted consultative status with the Economic and Social Council and other agencies. Non-governmental organizations may be granted consultation or consultative status with the Economic and Social Council and other agencies. So you got a whole lot of people taking authority besides yourself. Well, really, the goal is for you to have none. When Big Brother takes over. The UN's chief administrative officer is the Secretary General, currently Portuguese politician and diplomat Antonio Guterres. Portuguese. Wasn't they our first colonizers somehow? And now he's made it to the top of the UN. He want us free now. He want us free. Boy. So he began his first 5-year term on the 1st of January 2017. Oh, wait a minute. This might be an old one because this is 6 years after 2017. Oh, he was reelected on who elects him? Did we elect him? Our representatives elected him. Who's representing American Indian? Do we exist yet? Without our sovereignty, we don't exist. Why? Because we wouldn't have the political clout to exist. You have to have sovereignty to exist, even on an international level. Other than that, you're just slave fodder. That's going to have to go with whatever your corporation leader wants to do. You don't have a voice. I don't know why our Indians are not doing the math on what kind of sovereignty you get when you are just a federally supported or state supported entity. Corporations don't really need sovereignty, right? I mean, even if they had it, they're still in the international jurisdiction of commerce and the sea. So they're off the land. Now, I did have the article where Anna said that in exact terms. She said, you are automatically in a sea jurisdiction when you create or are in a corporation. Basically, when you, yeah, that's what I gotta find it. But I was like, whoa, I was shocked, because I started to see that, and then I read that she had already said that, and I didn't know that she said that. So it's automatic sea jurisdiction. So what would take us out of that? Our sovereignty would. In other words, we have rights that are unalienable for men and women, right? A corporation doesn't have those. Now they're trying to give them this, but a corporation, again, it doesn't have a nationality. So it doesn't really need what birthright people need. A corporation doesn't need a birthright. It doesn't even need land. So we don't want to be stuck in a jurisdiction that is limited in ways that men and women wouldn't be. And a corporation that doesn't get a birthright. Corporations cannot return your birthright. We have to take our birthright. A corporation doesn't do that. And when we create one, it doesn't take our birthright back either. It can't. It's two completely different jurisdictions. It doesn't have the standing to take our birthright back. We have to do that. A corporation can be bought and sold. Our birthright can't. That's why it was so important to reclassify us. You know, it really was. The UN, okay, we read that already. The organization is financed by assessed and voluntary contributions from its member states. Sounds like another bill that we didn't contract for. The UN, its officers, and its agencies have won many Nobel Peace Prizes, though other evaluations of its effectiveness have been mixed. Some commentators believe the organization to be an important force for the peace and human development, while others have called it an ineffective, biased, and corrupt. Okay. In the century prior to the UN's creation, I think we might not read beyond this because this is what I highlighted. It's Wikipedia, so you can read it yourself. In the century prior to the UN's creation, several international organizations, such as the International Committee of the Red Cross, oh boy. Wasn't that one of the colonizing entities, the Red Cross, or something of the Red Cross? When Columbus came, his boats, I believe, did they have those big red crosses on it? The Holy Cross or whatever? Isn't that where we first knew about the Red Cross? Was it the Maria and the Santa Maria or whatever? the Pinta Batista and the Santa Maria out. So that just sent a chill down my spine. The International Committee of the Red Cross, Lord no, were formed to ensure protection and assistance for victims of armed conflict and strife. That just sounds like an international army that comes marching in. So how would that work? Well, say now they want to do something like that. All they have to do is start some kind of psyop of a conflict so that an organization like this can send in the troops, right? During World War I, several major leaders, especially American President Woodrow Wilson, advocated for a world body to guarantee peace. Again, why someone we elected, did we ask him to be the peacekeeper of the entire world? Did we want to take on that much responsibility, Americans? Or American Indians? Is that like doing too much? especially when you got so many issues right here on this soil. So they want to overlook the issues that we face because that is just business as usual. We ain't here to fix that. We got our eyes set on a much bigger platform with which to dominate you with. Our domination, we understand, might not be enough. But if we could get the world to dominate you Indian asses, what are y'all going to do when you feel up against the wall? We got these councils and all these committees and all these da-da-da. You're just going to feel like you have no rights. Baby, I have my birthright. And with that alone, all you bastards got to go packing. The Pope denounced the doctrine of the discovery. Again, that's the one why all of this has happened to us in history. But he denounced it. So now, when does it get undone? That's the part where we step in, Indians. We could either run to this corporation or we could run to our sovereignty. One will lead us back to slavery. One will give us the authority we need to maintain a birthright for the generations to come. One is ensuring that this entity has slaves, which will be your generations to come, or you could choose sovereignty and give your generations a fighting chance. So during World War I, several major leaders, especially American President Woodrow Wilson. So the United Nations is spearheaded by an American president. He doesn't do much to stop the disenfranchisement of American Indians. But the organization that he is boo loving on and encouraging, we think that will. That's the logic behind this. Okay. So he advocated for a world body to guarantee peace. So it's his, like they say, it's his brainchild, right? The winners of the war, the Allies. So it was Woodrow Wilson's idea. He was advocating for this. Anything to divert from the issue of American Indians and make a larger entity. He's not working with you trifling Indians. He's reaching out overseas because he's concerned about the peace in the rest of the world, not what's going on in America. Did we always say no justice, no peace? Right? And didn't that fall on deaf ears? So how could he want an organization, or put you this way, how can an organization that's basically his brainchild want something that he didn't want, or he didn't care about, or didn't pay no attention to the foods? The winners of the war, the Allies, met to decide on formal peace terms at the Paris Peace Conference. The League of Nations was approved and started operations, but the U.S. never joined. So you have the idea, but you don't join. And there's something in there that is not being said. There's a reason. There has to be a reason why you would start, basically spearhead an idea, but not join the finished product. Why? I guess it would look sort of hypocritical, right? Here you are, in a country that got all this issue with quote unquote coloreds and Negroes, but you want to be on an international stage. Maybe that's what it was, that the other nations would have laughed him off the fucking council. But no one knows it was his idea, right? They just go for it. As long as he got the ball rolling, right? Now he can step back and wait a little while. So it started out as the League of Nations. League of Nations formally came into being when the Covenant, on January 10th, 1920, the League of Nations formally came into being when the Covenant of the League of Nations, ratified by 42 nations in 1919, took effect. The League Council acted as an executive body directing the Assembly's business. It began with 4 permanent members: the UK, France, Italy, and Japan. So we have an American president that is the basic he is the idea. He advocated, but he doesn't join. So what is this? Why did I highlight that? Because we have to look at where a thing originated. He had the idea, so he wanted to get the ball rolling. But in factual, this is a UK, a France, a Italy, and a Japanese originated entity. This is what we call going to the origin of a thing. I believe 3 of those are our colonizers. The first 2, and Italy, isn't that in Rome? Rome is the one who began the doctrine of discovery, but now they want to be about that peace. Indians, please take note. It's not just to upset you. These videos are not just to upset you, but if it upsets you enough to know which direction we need to go, then I would have to say my work or my job is done. This might be the most important part of this reading of this video. The origin of a thing. Look how slickly it became about. So our direct oppressors, in the form of our president, he has the idea, but he does not want to be part of the idea, I think, if I common sense it again, because America is not the one to be talking about no fucking peace, okay? No justice, no peace. So he just puts the bee in the bonnet of his boys. You guys do it. And then we'll come later on. You got to make things look clean up a little bit more, maybe. But his boys are key in our colonization. I want to say there's your United Nations right there. So just to put a perspective, now they don't want to work with us directly, but all of a sudden they are the professionals at peace. You don't want to face the mess in the Americas. But now you present yourself to the world and you use my landmass to do it. Yeah, because I believe in all 3, and perhaps even Japan, these were monarchies. different levels of monarchies. I'm telling you, when the Moors went out into the world, this is what they spread: monarchy. Then they tried to make it like it was republic and it was democratic. It's a monarchy. These started as monarchies, and truth be told, I don't really think they really changed. You know, it's like they have to make it look good, but you know that they didn't change because of the need to colonize America. If they were monarchies, I mean, I'm sorry, if they were like us, they wouldn't need to have to come for us. You know what I'm saying? Because they would be understood. Look, birds of a feather. Well, we don't have to go out of our way to fuck with America because we uphold what she upholds. The reason why they came for us is because we were not like them. Again, your spirituality either lends itself to tolerance or it doesn't. Our spiritual system in the Americas was not monotheistic, and this is where this all begins. I know a lot of people have a problem understanding how religion has shaped our oppression. You have to be able to centralize the power. So you need a one God to do that, because that's the storefront. Now the priests that are pushing for this, they're not interested in God. Why? Because they have taken on the role of being God in their little minds. They just needed to convince us that they are representatives of God. But that's the furthest thing from the truth. So the beginnings of the United Nations, it's basically, it began with 4 permanent members. 3 of the 4 we know to be involved in the colonization of America. But now they've come as the United Nations to produce UNDRIP. And we believe them. We believe that this is the golden key. I tell you, we shouldn't. When we draft our version of UNDRIP, baby, that's all we're going to ever need. I promise you. We have to know what sovereignty is. The reason why they're doing this is because they're assuming sovereignty over us. They're assuming sovereignty over basically the world. But we have to let them know we don't need yours because we have our own. It's called birthright. You have one too in your respective lands. You'll need to stop trying to bleed and constantly land grab other lands. You've got to let go of but you know what? Let them do what the hell they want. But they just can't do it over here. Once we Indians grab hold of our sovereignty, the full strength of it, not a piece of it. Some of us just want a little piece. Just give me that little piece of land over there and I'm good. No, you're not. You're really not good. You'll never be good. That is a signal to the corporation that they still have slaves who think they're Indians. Indians are sovereign. Indians are not taxed by the state or the Fed. After some limited success and failures during the 1920s, the League proved ineffective in the 1930s, as it failed to act against the Japanese invasion of Manchuria. Now, Japan is one of the permanent fucking members. They couldn't even keep themselves out of conflict. You should have been kicked off the damn board. If you can't uphold peace, what the fuck are you doing talking about keeping peace? Or were you talking about keeping the peace that's in your pocket so you could fire it off like Medea? Is that the peace you talk about? So the Japanese, so we got three colonizers and one loose cannon to make up the permanent members of the beginnings. This is the origin of the United Nations, y'all. Don't get it. Don't think that, oh, that's the League of Nations. That ain't the United Nations. Wake up, Indians. To get to an origin, you sometimes have to follow the sordid, checkered path to know where it began. This is the actual origin of the United Nations. That's why they have it in history under the United Nations entry on the Wikipedia. It's the same entity, is what I am saying. This is who founded it. It began with 4 permanent members: the UK, France, Italy, and Japan. And they just told us Japan was a loose cannon. Okay. 40 nations voted for Japan to withdraw from Manchuria. Oh, from Manchuria. I thought they were voting for them to withdraw from the League of Nations. But Japan voted against it. So that's not even democratic. Boo, boo, wake up. Okay, so you saying you want to uphold democracy all the damn time. 40 nations against 1 was not enough to keep Japan. So Japan walked out of the League of Nations, of the League, instead of withdraw. So the reason why you joined the League of Nations was for peace, but you leave the League of Nations because you about that war. You can't make this up. You can't make this up. 40 fucking nations voted for Japan to withdraw from Manchuria. But Japan said the money too good, bitches. I'm having this. But Japan voted against it and walked out of the League instead of withdrawing from Manchuria. It also failed, the League of Nations, to act against the Second Italo-Ethiopian War, when calls for economic sanctions against Italy failed. Italy and other nations left the League. So there's another nation that it was about that war. I can't wait. I'll come back for peace after I kick this ass over here. Okay, just let me just get this off, please. I'm about that peace, but not right now. Come on, guys, let me do this. So they walked out. Okay. Wait a minute. When war broke out in 1939, the League closed down. But they didn't give up the fight, though. They said, we are determined for this one world order venue. Storefront. Declarations by allies of World War II. So the League of Nations was before World War II. All right in there. The first steps towards the establishment of the United Nations was the Inter-Allied Conference that led to the Declaration of St. James Palace on June 12, 1941. By August 1941, another American president, Franklin Roosevelt, and British Prime Minister, they both basically agents of, at this point, agents of the crown, both of them, Franklin Roosevelt and Winston Churchill, had drafted the Atlantic Charter. Oof. I'm just trying to figure out, did we give them the authority to do such? I know we didn't, but I just don't know that that was part of what they were to make charters. I don't know. Now, King James, I could understand. The president, I don't know. I don't know. But if you're working already for a crown, then I guess their powers are trickle down to you. So they drafted the Atlantic Charter, which defined goals for the post-war world. At the subsequent meeting of the Inter-Allied Council in London on September 24th, 1941, the 8 governments in exile of countries under Axis occupation, together with the Soviet Union and representatives of the Free French forces, unanimously adopted adherence to the common principles of policy set forth by the UK and the United States. By asking them to regulate commerce, it really led to a lot, didn't it? Like, we just wanted you to carry our shit across the ocean. We didn't, all this other stuff you're doing, it wasn't in the plan. But it's a monarchy. It's like they automatically do this, unless you right there to say no. And once they take away your authority, then you really can't say no. Or you could say it, but they're not going to listen because they done strip you of your authority. Now you're a United States citizen and you're nothing more than a debt slave. Pay your bill first, and then you could talk to me about what you don't and want me to do, and what not, and what to do and not do. What's wrong? I must be tired. Roosevelt and Churchill met at the White House in December 1941 for the Arcadia Conference. Roosevelt considered a founder of the UN. Roosevelt considered a founder of the UN. Sit with that for a while. So the same country or the same government that don't got no place for Indians is considered a founder of the United. So you won't go by the laws that we put in the Constitution, but you want the UN, you go by that because he created it. Or he's one of the, see, whoever created it, he's a founder. So it's him and the other international representatives. It was Roosevelt who coined the term United Nations to describe the Allied countries. Churchill accepted it, noting its use by Lord Byron. So we like this, they get it to come out of a president that's supposed to be for the people, but you know that he's working for them to begin with, meaning not us, but the UK. It was, we contracted them, the UK, to do our commerce, to monitor, what do you call it? Protect our commerce on the high seas and to protect our property. That's what Anna says the two jobs of a government is. So Roosevelt is already an agent of the UK. And everything he did only made it less an American government and more a UK storefront. What? Okay. Churchill accepted it, noting its use by Lord Byron. So it was a president that created what we know as the United Nations. He named it and everything. But again, he is a puppet of the crown. The text of the Declaration by United Nations was drafted on the 29th of December, 1941 by Roosevelt, Churchill, and Harry Hopkins. It incorporated Soviet suggestions, but included no role for France. One major change from the Atlantic Charter was the addition of a provision for religious freedom, which Stalin approved after Roosevelt insisted. Wait a minute. It incorporated Soviet suggestions, but included no role for France. One major change from the Atlantic Charter was the addition of a provision for religious freedom, which Stalin approved after Roosevelt insisted. So they went with the Soviet Union, even though it didn't go with France. And it got the Soviet to agree after a provision for religious freedom. So they didn't have religious freedom in the UN? Is that what we're reading? How can you unite people if you don't have religious freedom, though? I mean, I think that's what I read. One major change from the Atlantic Charter was the addition of a provision for religious freedom, which Stalin approved after Roosevelt insisted. Approved. Stalin had to approve? I'm not sure I understand that. Anyway, when I'm watching this video, then I'm like, oh, now I understand it. Anyway, Roosevelt's idea of the four powers, referring to the four major Allied countries, the United States, the UK, the Soviet Union, and China, emerged in the Declaration by the United Nations. Let's read that again. Roosevelt's idea of the four powers. So he's bringing us where we are sharing powers, but we didn't need that as a sovereign country. We didn't need to share power, right? Because when that happens, that means those four are going to have some kind of authority in your land, right? Or some kind of sway. Two of them are communist, right? Wasn't it still communist at that point? Or when did that? Well, nevertheless, one of them still is. But yeah, it was communist when it was Soviet Union. So again, you hear all this talk about being against the communists, but the, if the United Nations is whatever it says it's supposed to be, there shouldn't be no issue. Uh, 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 So it was Roosevelt's idea. Again, our president pretty much taking the lead in this whole entity. Don't want to work with the Indians, but now come to today, the entity that was created basically by an American president, now it wants to recognize not us, but all indigenous all over the world. Why? Because it wants to control, it wants to have jurisdiction over all indigenous of the world, not because it cares about. The president we had could have, he didn't, if he cared about us, he wouldn't have reclassified us, right? Or he wouldn't have, yeah, the reclassification was in 1790. So by 1942, we're still black colored. Well, at that point, what were we colored? Negro? I think we were Negro. I think. So what I'm trying to show, I don't want us to have this mysterious idea of the United Nations. I mean, it look at its origin. It's kind of pissing me off that this corporation had so much to do with the creating of it, because now it makes me wonder, how could it ever have our best interest? How could it ever? It wants to appear just like the corporation always does. It wants to appear like it has our best interest. We come running and we find that yet again, we're being tricked. What's the solution? Our full sovereignty. It is right in our grasp to turn it down, to despise it, like Esau is said to have done, which he didn't, but we would be. That would be something that we will have to face the ancestors with. We will have to explain to your great, 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 great indigenous grandmother why you stomped on her while she's in her grave. How did I stomp on my great, 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 great Nana? Because you refused the birthright she gave you. You settled for another hijack. You probably read ahead, and I don't blame you. Roosevelt's idea of the four powers, referring to the four major countries, allied countries, the United States, the UK, the Soviet Union, and China, emerged in the declaration by the United Nations. On New Year's Day, 1942, Roosevelt Churchill, the Soviet Union's former foreign minister, Maxim Litvinov, yeah, and the Chinese premier, TV Soon. I still can't believe it. Isn't the Soviet Union a communist country? I just wonder, why was there all this threat of communism, right? If you're in a peaceful alliance of four powers, well, wouldn't that mean that they're working together? When I see China, the first thing I think of is COVID. And I'll just dot, you know. I think of the whole thing in a sort of different light. Um, so Roosevelt, that's United States. Churchill, that's UK. Soviet Union, that's the Soviet Union. Chinese, that's China. Signed the declaration by United Nations. So they made a declaration, not us, right? At that point, our president was not, and still is not, and never will, represent American Indians. He's representing foreign interests. Don't we all say that it's a foreign corporation? Do we know who's head of that foreign corporation? Okay, so then Roosevelt and Churchill, what? Same thing, right? Right. The next day, the representatives of 22 other nations added this the next day. Okay. 22 other nations. But those, see, they made the declaration, the four of them, and someone else signed. Those 22 other nations have just made those four their big brother. During the war, the United Nations became the official term for the Allies. In order to join, countries had to sign the declaration and declare war on the Axis powers. So this is an organization of peace, but they had to sign a declaration and declare war. What happened to the peace? Um, the October 1943 Moscow Conference resulted in the Moscow Declaration, including the Four Power Declaration on General Security, which aimed for the creation at the earliest possible date of a general international organization. This was the first public announcement that a new international organization was being contemplated to replace the League of Nations. The Tehran Conference followed shortly afterwards, at which Roosevelt, Churchill, and Joseph Stalin, the leader of the Soviet Union, met and discussed the idea of a post-war international organization. So right after war, it's land grab time. Now, these wars were orchestrated. the more contemplative of us have known that the wars were basically staged, the world wars, right? Well, all of them, but namely those. So Hegelian dialect, create the conflict, offer the solution. But you are the one who did both. The new international organization was formulated and negotiated amongst the delegations from the Allied Big Four, the four powers, United States, UK, Soviet Union, and China. At the Dumbarton Oaks Conference from 21st of September to October 7th, 1944. They agreed on proposals for the aims, structure, and functioning of the new organization. It took the conference at Yalta in February 1945 and further negotiations with Moscow before all the issues were resolved. Founding in 1945. This is a long entry on Wikipedia, so we're not going to read it all. I think we got a lot, and I think I should end this because it's already 2.5 hours. Let's try to read this, and we're going to close out because I don't want to really make a long video. And I think we got enough to think about already. You know what I'm saying? What is so when I throw something like this on the table, trust I'm also offering solution. I'll say it again. Our complete full sovereignty. I said when we have our own IDs, they will refer to our linguistic land mass. The whatever Indian you are, I said we'd have a little map of the United States, and a color sort of coordinated thing to show, say, this is where the Sioux were, this is where the Blackfoot were, this is where the basically it would have to be the linguistic, though. That would just make it a lot more simpler than breaking it up into the thousands of tribes. But I think the linguistic groups are, a little more broad, even though there's a lot of those too. I think there's like, how many linguistic groups? I don't think there was a whole lot, as many as there were tribes. But anyway, it would be a way we have to carve out the land that we stand on to be sovereign. We don't stand on reservation and be sovereign. We have to reclaim our land. You know what I'm saying? We have to reclaim all of our land. The colonizer did. We just overlay our authority on this construct. And now we have a land again. So what is that doing? You might say, well, we're still not controlling it. In a way, that will come. But what it does is establish the footing where we are sovereign at, which basically all Indians are sovereign everywhere. But just to resurrect what America really was, what was it? It was split or carved by our linguistic groups. I think that's a beginning. Because we tend to live in certain areas of America. No Indian lives in all of America at one time. So that's why we do still need to establish where our Indian, where is our birthright land, right? So it's just to get our footing. That's our land, and we have all rights to it, Indians. There's no one can stop us. The Pope just denounced the doctrine of the discovery. They don't have an authority anymore. The United Nations can't bother us because this is our land. We're not doing anything, and they don't have the authority over us. That's why it really gets confusing when you have an organization like this that's doing so much. Like, it's one thing to keep peace. It's entirely other to have a court, to have all these different agencies like the World Health Organization. Wait a minute now. And then something like the WHO, now they can tell everybody that they have to do this with their bodies and get this injection because it's the world. And doesn't that really sound like, oh my God, I can't say no to that? Oh, yes, you can, but you have to have sovereignty to do that. That would have been the only thing to take us out of that conundrum. It's the only thing that's going to keep us out of any conundrum. Anything that this international entity cooks up, Indians won't be part of it. Now, the rest of the world, here's the thing, Indians. Tamari America is based on a diversity, which means we're not concentrating power with one deity, one people. We're not doing that in America. So this is our basis. The other parts of the world, they never had that. So in other words, they have to do their own work. America was never supposed to, we're not trying to rule the world like that. Only the entity that we kicked out of Tamari is, that's why they got kicked out, because their desire to rule preceded their desire for people to have individual like rights. They were not as concerned about people having individual rights as they were concerned about dominating those people. What's the easiest way to do that? You have to get them on some kind of spiritual set of beliefs that doesn't tolerate diversity of thought. You know what I'm saying? They knew that they had to do it spiritually. And then the sad part is, I really don't feel like the world outside of Tamari got to experience what we had. The diversity, ironically, is what it acted like a checks and balances, I want to say. It really did. Because you had a God-given right to even choose what deity you wanted to, you really did. But we saw the deities as a family, so it was okay. It was okay. It really was okay. But the land, the world that the Moors live in, it is not okay to choose your deity. It is not okay. It is not okay. And they've done everything they could. They talk about peace. They talk about wanting to help people. You'll never be able to do that with that rigid of a mindset. You know, what'll happen is the people, they will either feel oppressed or they're it's like their mindset will be one of judgment. Like, if you're not believing like I believe, something's wrong with you. You're an infidel. Death to the infidel. or something like that. That's when your mind is limited to one form of thinking. Now, the people themselves, we would find a way. But when you have a higher hidden priesthood that will do psyops that pull you into us and them situation, where, like, or say for instance, now there's some kind of war between Islam and Christian or whatever. So now you're going to, in other words, one has to be right, one has to be wrong in monotheism. It's not that one has a right to that belief and that one has a right. No, you know, it just doesn't help to have so rigid of a spiritual outlook. So that's what I'm saying. I say all that to say that trying to put America as if all other countries are just like America is a huge mistake, because they're not. We had a base in polytheism, whereas most of the other nations primarily started out monotheistic. And so they never knew anything about the kind of diversity that a landmass like Tamari was promoting. Okay, so now I done talk past my 2.5 hour limit. Now it's gonna be 3 hour video probably. By the 1st of March, 1945, 21 additional states had signed the declaration by the United Nations. After months of planning, the UN Conference on International Organization opened in San Francisco. It's just so funny how this country goes out, grabs a bunch of other countries, and like then we become the meeting ground. You know, it's so funny how this corporation tries to weasel out of its obligations to the contract with Indians and free persons. They weasel out by creating coloreds, Negroes, blacks, and whites. So now they don't even have, they gotta act like, well, those weren't part of the original Constitution, because they recreate it. Once they create it, they have the authority over it. That's what this whole United Nations is. Who created, they have the control over it. And what I was saying before earlier is that, say now there's something that we like that they said. Well, they can change it because it's their document. So it'll be there to pull us in, but we don't know if they decide that they don't want to use that no more. It's their declaration, you know. It's, and they can add to it. They have that kind of, I'm okay. Somebody might say, well, they won't do that. All I'm saying is they have the authority to. We did not create it. We don't get to manipulate it. It will always be them doing that. That's what gives them the domination, the jurisdiction. That's why we make our own declaration. And guess what? The United States will have to honor it just like it does UNDRIP. Well, more than it does UNDRIP, actually. Much more. Because we are the people of the original contract. They didn't contract with the United Nations. They just created a new entity to just divert from the original contract, is how I see it. So it was attended by 50 nations, governments, and a number of non-governmental organizations. The delegations of the Big Four chaired the plenary meetings. The Big Four. That's who runs the United Nations, not us. We need to create to run. We need to create in order to run what we create. If someone else did it, they have the authority over it. And when we use something that they created, they have authority over us. Churchill urged Roosevelt to restore France to its status of a major power. Roosevelt had the power to restore France to its status of a major power after the liberation of Paris in August 1944. The drafting of the Charter of the United Nations was completed over the following 2 months, and it was signed on the 26th of June, 1945, by the representatives of the 50 countries. The UN officially came into existence on the 24th of October, 1945, upon ratification of the Charter by the 5 permanent members of the Security Council. So this is where I think you believe it there. Okay, they're permanent members of the Security Council. The United States, again, this is an entity that did not want to deal with American Indians, but it's running to an international sea jurisdiction to give the illusion that it gives a damn about people all over the world. And now UNDRIP is claiming to have this concern about indigenous people. That's not how you were founded. Your principles did not care about indigenous of America. We have to go to the origin of a thing to know what it is. The 5 permanent members, even if they're not there today, I don't know what the situation is today, but I know that we know who brought it into being. Just because the mother that birthed you leaves the scene or you grow up away from her, you were pushed from her womb. She is you and you is she. Just like we indigenous trace our bloodline, we got to do a bloodline ancestry check on the United Nations. I think a lot of us really believe that it's the savior. Its mother is not. I just don't. This shouldn't be rocket science. Again, how you going to say this to us, Heru? How you going to tell us this when all we know is the United Nations, UNDRIP? I can say this because I know that you have authority in your birthright. That's the only way I could even fix my mouth. If I thought that there was no other way, I wouldn't even make this video. But I'm trying to show that what we have is superior to this. Look at its parents. Look at its 4 parents, y'all. One of them was a major cause of what we experienced over the last few years. Um, it's a grab, y'all. It's a grab. It's a very wide reach and a very wide net to grab authority, to grab jurisdiction. So I think the idea is if you can't find justice in your nation that you elected of the whatever, just come on to Big Mama. Yeah, we just cross that ocean and come on over into the sea jurisdiction so Mama can protect you. That's like Ursula from the Little Mermaid. She's in the sea and she'll give you things, but it's a deal that she'll be making that doesn't even see your sovereignty. I'll read once more, and I think maybe I will just make it 3 hours. The UN officially came into existence on the 24th of October, 1944, upon ratification of the Charter by the 5 permanent members of the Security Council. Security. What are they securing? Security. The United States, the UK, one and the same, France, Soviet Union, communist, and China, communist. And by a majority of the other 46 nations. A majority. Does that mean that some of them didn't want this? The first meetings of the General Assembly with 51 nations represented and the Security Council took place in London beginning in January 1946. Debates began at once covering topical issues such as the presence of Russian troops in Iranian Azerbaijan. And British forces in Greece. I just don't understand how a member of your nation is a permanent member of the Security Council, yet your nation is the ones that's now Russia and the Soviet Union. Are they the same or no? But they okay. And Britain. So you're the one of the big 4, and you're occupying Greece. So who's the authority? Like, it's like who, how, what's going on? I don't understand it. How you on one of the big 4 and you are occupying Greece at the same time? Talking about you want to uphold peace. How? British diplomat Gladwin Jebb served as interim Secretary General. The General Assembly selected New York City. See, we didn't have a say in that, right? The General Assembly selected New York City as the site for the headquarters of the UN. The headquarters, baby. Wow. Yet when they make their little UN, it won't be said that it originated in America. It should be our jurisdiction. But they're in an international jurisdiction. So it's not Then we could probably claim United. No, I don't think we would still not really be able to, because I think the whole reason why they have this organization is to in other words, it's rather unconstitutional. It's rather unconstitutional. I don't know that the Constitution said anything about having our president form unions with other nations like this. I just don't know. I don't think that. No, I think what we intended, I think what the drafters intended was that he would step in if we needed to defend ourselves. But I guess they said, oh, but if you come in the name of peace, everybody going to think that's great. But a lot is also coming with that. A lot of authority and jurisdiction issues. So it's not just peacekeeping that's going on here. But as we should figure out by now, after 1868, when the United States citizen was created, I think we can safely say from 1868 on, we the people, quote unquote, have not had any say in the policies of the United States corporation. We didn't have the authority as United States citizens. We still don't as United States citizens. Now, an Indian not taxed and a state national, those two would have a say, especially American Indian. We should be the only ones, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I I don't want to say that immigrants leave, like be expelled or something, like, if they didn't do anything criminal and all of that. But I just want to know that I want it to be known that Indians are, this is our land. Now we're not going to, you know, act uh anything less than uh peaceful and respectful of other races here. But I think we can do that and still make it clear that this is our ancient birthright land. So just like how the corporation can go in on a reservation and just start digging if they want, build do a pipeline or whatever, all that. See, that's what American Indians can do. Now I think we could finesse it better. I think our authority wouldn't be, in other words, the understanding would be, this is our land to do as we wish. So it's not that we're going to disrespect you, but we respectfully ask that you comply with us. And if it becomes an issue, then it elevates to an issue. But other than that, it's like, it's the understanding should be that Indians, for whatever reason, have a right to their land. You know, it just should be understood, to the point where people would even say, you know what, I want what they have. Meaning, I want to go back home and exercise my birthright authority. You know, I just think at some point all Americans need to know that the American Indian that this country was stolen from is that same one you called African American. Just be aware of that always. And only we can do that. And for this corporation to stop us is an act of genocide. To them to put out propaganda that we're lying or we misguided, that is an act of genocide against what they call indigenous people. And it would explain why we've been treated the way we've been treated. It's because we are the threat, because this is our land, and everyone who knows who we really are knows that we have authority that they never will have. And that's why the corporation has made it known that it doesn't care for the people they reclassified as colored and black, Negro. The General Assembly selected New York City as the site for the headquarters of the UN construction. Construction began on September 14th, 1948, and the facility was completed on the 9th of October, 1952. The Norwegian foreign minister, Trygve Lie, was elected as the first UN secretary. So they build this on our landmass, and a Norwegian foreign minister is the first UN secretary. This is just, it's like, oh my God. It's like we are yesterday's whore, and everybody just coming in and having their way, you know, on our landmass. We just there, right? Laying in the bed, spread eagle. Come on, do what you got to do. Jeb was only in the position until a permanent secretary general was elected. So the UN's prime, this is the Cold War. Okay. Oh, it's already 3 hours. uh, let's see what they do, how they handle this. Cold War, 1947 to 1991. I didn't realize it was that long. Though the UN's primary mandate was peacekeeping, a division between the United States and the Soviet Union often paralyzed the organization, generally allowing it to intervene only in conflicts distant from the Cold War. So again, you invent a peacekeeping organization, and then 2 of the 4, the big 4, still get to do war or play war games or whatever it was. What is up with that? You are a founding member. You gotta be for what I just don't understand it. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. So they are they, if you can't keep yourselves out of conflict amongst yourselves, like the Iroquois Confederacy, well, at least well, apparently the Iroquois Confederacy did well, they had the UK, you know, to help them. So, but this is not the look. If your primary mandate is peacekeeping, haven't you failed? Isn't your whole shit a failure? If that's your primary, then you're a primary failure. So allowing it to intervene only in conflicts distant from the Cold. So a war is going on, you're the peacekeeper, and you could only intervene in conflicts that were away from the war. Okay. Okay. 2 notable exceptions were a Security Council resolution on the 7th of July, 1950, authorizing a US-led coalition to repel the North Korean invasion of South Korea. So you're at some kind of issue with the Soviet Union, but you, like a hypocrite, can go and stop something with South Korea and North Korea. Now, wait a minute. Were they members? You know, where's the authority coming from? That's being the world police, right? A US-led coalition to repel the North Korean invasion of South Korea passed in the absence of the Soviet Union and the signing of the Korean Armistice Agreement, July 27, 1953. On the 29th of November, 1947, the General Assembly approved a resolution to partition Palestine, approving the creation of Israel. 2 years later, Ralph Bunche, oh Lord, I went to his high school, oh Lord, a UN official, oh Lord, negotiated an armistice to the resulting conflict. So they haven't been very successful in that area either, right? Is there peace in the Middle East? But they gonna you know, somehow help the very people that a founding member disenfranchised. I just think it's a conflict of interest, if nothing else. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you really wanted to be about that life, you would have never declassified, reclassified American Indians. Okay, so this is how they created Israel. But again, what about the peacekeeping in Israel? 2 years later, Ralph Bunche, a UN official, negotiated an armistice to the resulting conflict. On the 7th of November, 1956, the first UN peacekeeping force was established to end the Suez Crisis. However, the UN was unable to intervene against the Soviet Union's simultaneous invasion of Hungary following the country's revolution. The Soviet Union was one of the big four. Oh boy. Yeah, there they go. They're right up here. Let's show it again. One of the big four at war. How does it work, y'all? Then who became a member of the UN? If y'all, which one of y'all is at war and which one of y'all is at peace? I'm thinking that your leaders are the ones who are getting on this big four council. So who's leading you to war or conflict? If it's not you, yourself. Okay. On July 14th, 1960, the UN established the United Nations operation in the Congo. Lord have mercy, 1960. Now we're talking about the whole civil rights, right? You going all around the world, well, we can say you're not really fulfilling your peace missions, but you would think you would at least get it right at home. Okay. So there they go into the Congo. I guess, in Africa. Africa is the largest regional group in the United Nations. So that just throws a whole other uh element. Plot just thickens, right? We're called African Americans, but it's actually only Africa that has uh the largest presence in the UN. I'm going to pause for a minute and be right back. Back. And now it's 3.5 hours. Or yeah, yeah, almost. Okay. Um, excuse me. On July 14th, 1960, the UN established the United Nations operation in the Congo, the largest military force of its early decades, to bring order to Katanga, restoring it to the control of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. By May 11th, 1964, while traveling to meet rebel leader Moise Tshombe during the conflict, Dag Hammarskjöld, often named as one of the UN's most effective secretary generals, died in a plane crash. Anna talks about this, and she believes that he was taken out because he was I would have to read her article, but he wasn't with the fuckery, you know. Mm. So he was traveling to meet rebel leader and died in a plane crash. Months later, he was posthumously awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Yeah, if you're out of the way, then we could decorate you. In 1964, Hammarskjöld's successor, U Thant, what the hell kind of, am I, deployed the UN peacekeeping force in Cyprus, which would become one of the UN's longest running peacekeeping missions. But they couldn't keep each other from fighting, but they could keep others from. With the spread of decolonization in the 1960s, the organization's membership shot up due to an influx of newly independent nations. You see the ploy, guys? You see what they're doing? Mm, 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 mm. So I would say that this organization, obviously, it's trumping what America would do on its own, because it's acting as a uh quadruple power with China. So it's not America, it's a United States, China, Soviet Union, and Russia, right? But I still trying to figure out which part of Russia would go to war and which part was in the United Nations, because I thought it would be one and the same, but well, just like we've heard, sometimes you got the real land soil jurisdiction, but then you have the paper generated commercial entities pretending to be the land soil. Maybe that's what's going on. Oh boy. In 1960 alone, 17 new states joined the U. So you see what's happening is those leaders are now becoming almost like leaders of all these newly independent, because they're going to be seen somehow like, they're the savior, right? Meanwhile, in their back home, we here fighting for inferior civil rights and whatnot, got the segregation going on, while this corporation is just showing its little smiley face to the world. I hope this video, if nothing else, lets us see how an entity that originated with an American president's brainstorm, yet it never really quite made it to American Indians. And then suddenly they have a declaration for the rights of indigenous people. How does that work when our own president, if he was interested in that, we wouldn't have been called black? So you're being pulled out of one jurisdiction into a foreign one. And so once you're in the foreign one, you're no longer a sovereign on your land. All of this became my awareness, is what I'm trying to say, about what we have as just being us. It's almost like we're standing in America and there's this big crown on each of our heads, but people around us are saying that ain't no crown, that's what that's just it's in your mind, you don't see no crown on your head. It's a figment of your imagination. So the crown stands for our sovereignty on this land, but we have every entity that interfaces with us pretending like they don't see it. And so we're left to think, oh, I don't have a standing. It's like we have to put our hands up and touch the crown, and then we go and then get a mirror and say, oh shit, how come nobody told me I was the king? How come nobody told me I was the queen? Or, because the whole idea was to get you to think you were not, so that they could slip that shit off your head after they reclassified you as colored and then African American eventually. So this entity sees the crown on our head, ignores it, and then rushes into a like a union with 3 other nations, but they're going to fix up all the issues in the world. we here talking about no justice, no peace, and all of that, and they are the peacekeeping entity of the world, but not in America, where they are headquartered. Things that make you go, mm. Good boy. Okay, with opposition from the okay. On 25th of October 1971, with opposition from the United States, but with the support of many third world nations, the People's Republic of China was given the Chinese seat on the Security Council in place of the Republic of China. The People's Republic of China replaced the Republic of China, also known as Taiwan. The vote was widely seen as a sign of waning American influence in the organization. Third world nations organized themselves into the group of 77 under the leadership of Algeria. Algeria is in Africa, right? Which briefly became a dominant power in the UN. I guess they give that's almost like being in a fraternity. And, oh, now it's your turn to be big dog, and then you do all the hazing stuff or whatever, and now you too can be the head international in charge. Okay, so with opposition from the United States, the Republic of China was given the Chinese seat with the support of many third world nations. So again, you got a bunch of people making decisions that override, you know. So it's like, then what the hell did we even bother having a constitution for? If someone else is going to have a say over us, you know, in our affairs, you know. But see, the corporation is making everybody's affairs their affairs, or the affairs of the corporation. They're making everybody's affairs the corporation's affairs. So the United States did not want the People's Republic of China to replace the Republic of China or Taiwan. So America's influence was waning. Well, she was not, sound like she didn't want the people to, be, I gotta find out what's the difference between the People's Republic of China. Let's look it up real quick. Oh, we can't. Let me see. Nope, that's not it. Okay. I feel like we should quickly look up the People's Republic of China. Of China. Okay, let's just look at the Wikipedia again. See what it. Let me see. Oh Lord, they're going to the dynastic periods. Okay. So I just want to, while we're here, just to show you that America predates Chinese uh dynasties, 2100 BCE, and America's 3400 BCE circa. So yeah, we're older than China, but I think you'll find a lot of pseudoness talking about them being like 400,000 years old and that's pre-literate dating, dubious pre-literate dating. Okay, so let's see the people Republic. Can we get uh, um okay, okay, here we go. People's Republic of China versus the Republic of China. The People's Republic of China is commonly known as China. The Republic of China is commonly known as Taiwan. Okay. These are separate states with a shared history. China claims sovereignty over Taiwan. Okay. These are separate states with a shared history. China claims sovereignty over Taiwan. After Kuomintang reunified China in 1928, most of mainland China was governed by the Republic of China or Taiwan. The island of Taiwan was under Japanese rule at the time. At the end of World War II, 1945, Japan surrendered Taiwan to the Republic of China. In 1949, there was a civil war in China, and the government lost control of the mainland to the Communist Party. Okay, okay, okay. So I think you got an idea. The Civil War in China and the government lost control of mainland China to the Communist Party, which established the People's Republic of China. So the People's Republic of China is the communist. Okay. And took control of all of mainland China. Oh, only the island of Taiwan remained under the control of the Republic of China. So the People's Republic of China is communist. No, no, I'm sorry. Let me see. So the People's Republic of China is the communist. The People's Republic of China is communist. Okay, where am I? Did I close my? Oh, I did. Oh boy. Oh man, I might. Looks like I closed my article mistakenly, or uh, not. Oh no, we're here. Okay. Okay, so the United States was against the People's Republic of China. Okay. Um, I- okay, so this is an interesting article. Um, okay. Oh, they talk a little bit about racism. Okay. On the 10th of November, no, 1975, a bloc comprising the Soviet Union and third world nations passed a resolution over strenuous American and Israeli opposition, declaring Zionism, to be racism. Oh shit. The resolution was repealed on the 16th of December, 1991. Wow. I just want to read that again. On November 10th, 1975, a bloc comprising the Soviet Union and third world nations passed a resolution over strenuous American and Israeli opposition, declaring Zionism to be racial. Mm. The resolution was repealed. Ooh. Well, the United States is one of the four. Um, so I think, they were one of the big four, okay, shortly after the end of the Cold War. Okay. With an increasing third world presence and the failure of UN mediation in conflicts in the Middle East, Vietnam, and Kashmir, the UN increasingly shifted its attention to its secondary goals of economic development and cultural exchange. By the 1970s, I'm sorry, by the 1970s, the UN budget for social and economic development was far greater than its peacekeeping budget. Okay, so let's read from 1991 to present to get, and I think we're going to leave it at this because this is long and I'm a little tired. Post Cold War, post Cold War, gosh, 1991 to present, after the Cold War. After the Cold War, the UN saw a radical expansion in its peacekeeping duties, taking on more missions in 5 years than it had in the previous 4 decades. Lord. So it's not even doing its primary, uh, you know, mission. Between 1988 and 2000, the number of adopted Security Council resolutions more than doubled, and the peacekeeping budget increased by more than tenfold. The UN negotiated an end to the Salvadoran Civil War, launched a successful peacekeeping mission in Namibia, and oversaw democratic elections in post-apartheid South Africa and post-Khmer Rouge Cambodia. In 1991, the UN authorized U.S. led coalition that repulsed Iraq's invasion. Okay, that repulsed Iraq's invasion of Kuwait. Brian Urquhart, the Undersecretary General of the UN from 1971 to 1985, later described the hopes raised by these successes as a false renaissance for the organization, given the more troubled missions that followed. Beginning in the last decades of the Cold War, critics of the UN condemned the organization for perceived mismanagement and corruption. In 1984, American President Ronald Reagan withdrew the United States funding from the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, over allegations of mismanagement, followed by the UK and Singapore. Um, funding. Okay, so they stopped the funding. Boutros Ghali, the Secretary General from 1992 to 1996, initiated a reform of the Secretariat, somewhat reducing the size of the organization. His threats, I'm sorry, his successor, Kofi Annan, initiated further management reforms in the face of threats from the U.S. to withhold its UN duties. Though the UN Charter had been written primarily to prevent aggression by one nation against another, in the early 1990s, the UN faced several simultaneous serious crises within Somalia, Haiti, Mozambique, and the nations that previously made up Yugoslavia. The UN mission in Somalia was widely viewed as a failure under the United States. Failure after the United States withdrawal following casualties in the Battle of Mogadishu. The UN mission to Bosnia faced worldwide ridicule for its indecisive and confused mission in the face of ethnic cleansing. In 1994, the UN assistance mission for Rwanda failed to intervene in the Rwandan genocide amidst indecision in the Security Council. Okay. I'll pause it there. Because let me see. I am okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm ready to check out. I've been at this for a while. It's almost 4 hours. So I could link it to Wikipedia and you could read the rest of it, but we have a great idea, and I'll pause it. I guess you could read, or you could pause it to read that. Oh, yeah, looks like um, yeah, you could read that if you want. I try to keep it where it would be you can read a good shot, but I can't get a good shot. Let me see. I think that okay, that's a little better. Uh, yeah, yeah. You could pause, and Oh man, it's nowhere near done. So I'm gonna have to say this is it for now, as I'm ready to take a nap. It's been going at it for a while. Thank you for watching. I just wanted to give a little background to the UN, and so we'll understand the origin. Where did it come from? So, how ironic that it was the brainchild of a, what was it, Woodrow Wilson, did they say? Uh, and yet, not much has changed toward us as American Indians, right? Or just these organizations pop up and do all this sometimes great things in the world, and we just don't. Yeah, you know, just we always should try to uncover the origins. That's what I'm trying to say, as I'm really just crashing all the way. I'm super tired. Sorry about that. I need to end this because I'm just in and out here. So yeah, just to get an idea of the origin. And I was saying it's ironic that, it was started by Woodrow Wilson, yet no concern for the very indigenous people, and that he would be trying to help everywhere else but in America. So yeah, this is the kind of shenanigans. Um, I will link to this. Um, you can read the whole thing on Wikipedia, of course, again, I'll try to link to it. I don't know if we'll revisit it. It I was actually gonna read some other things, but that said a lot. I think that kind of did what I needed it to do, just in terms of tracking the origin. We were gonna look at some things that Anna said, but this kind of said a lot. So thank you for watching. I'm sorry I was conking out. I just thought I always start these things late, and then I wonder why I've run out of gas. But thank you for watching. Wish you peace, health, wealth, joy, your land back, your identity back, your birthright back, all the great things. Thank you.